Hello, welcome back to the Attractions Group Podcast. Today we have an exciting interview with Matt Heller of the AttractionPros Podcast and of consulting and various theme park leadership position fame. We're also going to talk about some news in the attractions industry, notably Dollywood's groundbreaking new announcement. Welcome to the Attractions Group Podcast. David, I was wrong. I was wrong about something. You know, we were talking, I don't think this was recorded. I think we were just talking about this, but maybe this was on the podcast. We were talking maybe 2 weeks ago about the Reds' chances of making the playoffs. This was right after we'd gotten swept by the A's, and we had lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays. I told you, David, it's over. We have no chance to make the playoffs.
You know what? I think I agreed. I think I said it's over.
But we were wrong. We're back. We're back. We're not in the playoffs, but we would have been if the season ended today. So,
well, and whenever this goes live, I mean, I assume this is going to go live pretty quickly. But as we speak right now, the Reds do occupy the number 3, the third wild card position.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, I would not have put us in here.
Me neither. But we got our 4-game sweep over the Cubs, which yes. I didn't know we were capable of beating teams in the NL Central. So that's exciting.
Well, let's leave out what happened with the debacle that was the Bengals game. Another Cincinnati team.
Yes.
Goodness, that was hard to watch.
Well, at least J.J. McCarthy wasn't playing quarterback, because the silver lining of that game, and I'm not a Bengals fan, I will admit, but if I was, I would still be a Buckeyes fan first. And I would know that at least now, because Carson Wentz had an amazing game the first time they benched J.J. McCarthy, J.J. McCarthy's probably not starting again this year. That is good news for Buckeyes fans everywhere, and for people who, like watching good football. You wouldn't want to watch J.J. McCarthy, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, so Clete, we were supposed to have an interview last week, and for whatever reason, we kept thinking that maybe the guest was going to be on, wasn't going to be on, and they weren't. And normally we use that as an opportunity for you and I just to go off and spout off about whatever topic we may be talking about and making matters worse for whoever we're talking about. But and that this didn't happen last week. And by the time it came down to Friday, it's like, we're doing all these behind the scare interviews, doing several a week. Yeah, let's just go. Let's just not do an episode this week. So that's ended up what happening. And so if you think about it, my goodness, we've missed a few things in the news since the last time we did an interview. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot going on here in the U.S. and with the news cycle, from an individual, a female getting murdered on a Charlotte subway, to another school shooting, to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then police were gunned down in Pennsylvania. It was a busy week to not be doing a podcast, and we don't normally comment on that stuff anyway. We don't bring it in here, but I was emailed or direct messaged earlier in the week, I guess is last week, where someone asked 2 people. It came from 2 different people. And I don't know if they were if they were the same person, just in 2 different profiles. Probably not, but had asked, notice, which by the way, people noticed when we didn't post an episode, that you didn't do an episode this week. Is it because of one of them made mention specifically of the Charlie Kirk incident, and thinking, are you going? And the next one was, are you going to mention anything about it? Simply put, quite honestly, no. And that's not something that not that I don't have an opinion about it, not that you don't have an opinion about it, but at the same time, this is the Attractions Group podcast. It's about the attractions industry, and to address these 2 people's questions specifically. That's not our lane. we're talking about the attractions industry and things. Now, if it was something relevant specifically to the attractions industry, we could go on for an episode about it without a guest. You and I would talk back and forth, and maybe we would agree on some things, maybe we wouldn't. But in this particular instance, it's not really our. It's not ours to get into.
Yeah, and there's certainly enough political talk shows in the world.
Right.
We don't need to,
we don't want to climb into that ring.
Yes, right.
We've had people not come onto our podcast because we didn't want to get political.
Yes.
So it's just that's for people to get into that. There's podcasts, there's cable shows, there's TV shows, there's news, there's opinion. We're a podcast that talks about the attractions industry.
For sure.
So that's
For sure. Now, there is one question where it really does come down to the right and the left, and which one you prefer and which one you agree with. That's which side of racer you want to ride, the right or the left.
I want the backwards racer.
Okay,
it's not there anymore.
I thought that joke would land a little better. That's okay that it didn't. But I do actually. Which did they run? Did they run both sides back? Which color was running backwards?
It's just blue.
Blue was
backwards.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Blue.
And the racer Kings Island, by the way, just
correct.
In case you weren't at Kings Island.
Yes.
What now? Was that the only track in the? I guess at that time the Paramount Parks chain, was that the only roller coaster that ran a backwards train, or was that at the other ones? Because there are clones of the racer at a couple of the parks.
Racer 75. I don't think it ever ran a backwards train, but let's find out. Somebody see if you can comment below the truth about this question before I find out on the internet. Yes, from 1992 to 2007, Racer 75 did the same thing. It was probably just those two because they're basically the same ride. But Racer 75 is way less fun than the Racer at Kings Island. I don't know what it is. It's just there's less airtime. The airtime hills are too tall. It's a lot of it's not good.
Other than that, it's been a busy couple weeks in the news from the attraction standpoint.
Yes, it has. Talking about the Paramount Parks, talking about Kings Island and Kings Dominion. Cedar Fair, the Legacy Cedar Fair Parks are renewing. They have renewed, in fact, their contract with the intellectual property rights in the theme parks to the Peanuts characters, which we talked about this a few times. I was thinking they would. I think, David, you were thinking they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, only from a cost saving standpoint because of where 6 is right now, and they're trying to cost synergies. I didn't even know that was as a term until that's all we heard about. But I was kind of surprised in the sense of that the Peanuts characters, the IP was expiring, and amongst saving all the money, to me, it kind of makes sense to go with the IP that they had through. It was a
2052. 20. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it just seemed like, okay, well, if you're going to be doing this, the Peanuts contract only goes through 2030. So they did renew. It's not a long-term renewal. I'm sure that at this point, the financial issues that they're going through right now are probably in one form or another not going to exist in 5 years. So it's probably going to end up being a more long-term renewal. But I got to say, I'm a little bit surprised, yet at the same time, not surprised.
Yeah, I think it would just if you think about Kings Island and Carowinds, especially, and Knott's, holy cow, Knott's. Mm-hmm. Those parks are, at this point, it's so ingrained in what they are and who they want to be. And it's it's their.
It is.
Kings Island's Planet Snoopy won the golden ticket for best kids area for 10 consecutive years. It would be a little silly, I think, to throw that away. There's also, though, other parks in the chain that are big parks, but I still Cedar Point. They have Planet Snoopy and Camp Snoopy as separate kids areas, but it's not in your face the way it is at Carowinds or Kings Island or Knott's. So I think we talked about this too. I thought maybe they would only renew for less parks. They wouldn't keep it everywhere so that they could save some money. But by the point you're paying for exclusivity, it can't be that much more to have 8 parks than to have 11. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I would say it's mutually beneficial for both the IP and for
Oh,
the
yeah.
parks. Because honestly, when was the last time that the Charlie Brown or Peanuts had put out a new cartoon?
Well,
So
actually, recently they on Apple TV Plus they've been doing a bunch of new like musical type things. They came out with one this
okay,
summer. That's actually it's called like Snoopy Presents a Summer Musical. People like it. Like it's been getting pretty good reviews. So
okay.
yeah,
So I would think that this relationship's mutually beneficial. So it makes sense.
for sure, for sure. What else we got this week?
Oh my goodness, how could we forget this announcement? I mean, honestly, when I saw it come through and did the little whatever the ride through that they have, it looks amazing,
Yeah,
and
it
I
does.
honestly can't wait. We don't normally say who's going to be on the podcast in future weeks. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't because you never know. Schedules may change, or for whatever reason, the person may not end up being on. But I'm just going to go ahead and leak this one out. I think it's in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I forget. Eugene Naughton, and I really apologize if I mispronounce the last name, but Park President of Dollywood is going to be on, and I can't wait to dive into these questions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Wow. I'm speechless. It looks gorgeous. It looks so fun. It looks like Dollywood is just not holding back with this one
No,
at
they're
all.
not. This is now you are like a repository of information when it involves this. Who's the manufacturer on this?
You know, that's so funny because I have no idea. Let's find out.
I tried to look and I couldn't find out.
They
Right, I
could
couldn't
just
figure it out.
sometimes like for instance, the Walt Disney Company. Now I'm a cast member for the Walt Disney Company. I'm not speaking on behalf of the company in any way. The a lot of times when Disney builds a new ride, they don't actually say who's building it. We all know because we're delightfully how do I put this? Nerds. You know, like if I'm gonna see a Vekoma and I'm gonna know that's a Vekoma, or we're gonna see the track leaving their manufacturing facility or whatever it is. But like technically speaking, Vekoma is not like has never claimed to have built Tron. Like that is not like we all know Tron is built by Vekoma, but that's not no one has ever said that officially. It could be the sort of thing with this that like they didn't announce the manufacturer and we'll just have to kind of figure it out as time goes along. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's not.
Or go to app and see where this ride vehicle shows up.
Yeah, right. Right.
But no, as you're looking that up, if you're watching this on, or I'm sorry, listening to this on a podcast and on YouTube, we have up on the screen the ride vehicle, which the description has it going above the trees. Which if it's above the trees, then there's an element that is out exterior, and then it shows doing a dive into a plunge into water, going through rapids indoors. There seems to be a lot. This might be one of the first 4D kind of experiences on a large scale. Not that there haven't been 4D attractions before, but on a large scale, I don't think there's been one that at least on the front end looks like it's going to be a ton of different things. I don't know how long this experience is going to last, but there's a lot of elements to it.
Yeah, so it's Mock Rides, which makes sense. It was definitely either going to be Mock or Intamin for a ride like this. So
Okay.
Mock Rides is building this. If you think about like if you've ever ridden Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando here,
mm-hmm.
Imagine that, but literally built 26 years later with.
That's a good analogy.
That's going to be pretty crazy, pretty exciting. So yeah, I am curious to see what the wetness level is.
That in the video, have you seen the video?
Uh-huh.
If it takes a plunge like it insinuates you're going to, I would imagine that it's a plunge more intense than Pirates of the Caribbean, but maybe not like a Jurassic Park. If you can visualize those two,
of course.
But also, it seems to be a section where you're going through rapids. So I can't imagine. I don't know.
Doesn't sound dry. Does not sound dry.
No, it doesn't. It does not sound dry. It definitely sounds like, honestly, this from where I sit, this is an attraction that will sell tickets.
Yeah,
you'll have people come specifically to. I think I posted on the podcast Facebook page. The line queue is probably starting now, and they're going to be measuring it in hours and not minutes for how long it's going to take to get in. And
Speaking of,
this is but, let me finish, and then you go on with the thought. This is something that honestly you can build marketing around for years to come. This is an attraction that honestly it looks like, and maybe I'm wrong because I haven't rode it yet, but and won't for a year, but that your experience could be different each time you get on it. It can change drastically based on which seat you sit on in the vehicle. I mean, this is genius. It's 50 million, but I think that it will probably run over that because of how budgets operate. But at the same time, this is one I think you could honestly gauge return on investment on by people coming to the park, what the experiences are, what the reactions are. This is definitely a game changer, I would think, as far as would you consider Dollywood a seasonal park? Because there are times of the year they're closed.
For sure.
Are they a destination?
Well, they're a destination. They're not a regional park. They're a destination park, but they happen to be seasonal. Yeah, which is kind of there's not a lot of parks that fit that exact, because usually regional and seasonal are interchangeable terms, but I think with Dollywood they're not, you know.
But this is definitely a game-changing attraction, it seems like.
For sure. Yeah, and speaking of really long line queues, there's two that we must talk about just as generic theme park news. First up, Kings Island's The Conjuring House is getting crazy lines, and that's really exciting because it's an upcharge attraction, so hopefully they're making a lot of their money back for purchasing the IP and for their, sluggish second quarter, which we'll get back to in a second. But beyond that, yesterday or 2 days ago, but if you're watching this, the day it came out was the 21st day of September. And at Epcot, they have a ride which sometimes plays the song September by Earth, Wind, and Fire in Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. And because, did you remember the 21st night of September? Literally all day long, Guardians of the Galaxy had 3-hour waits. It was absolutely ridiculous for the 21st of September. I knew this was a thing. Like, I knew people, they play September all day there that day, so it's like, cool. I knew people liked this. I just had no idea that like Magic Kingdom was empty and Epcot was the most crowded I've ever seen it because of this Guardians of the Galaxy thing. That's good job on establishing your brand, and marketing this day that you're playing it all day. And that's crazy. I have no idea how that happened. Beyond that, though, we have to get back to talking about Cedar Fair, Six Flags. Their attendance is up year over year from this time last year. How about that? That's great news.
It is. Finally, a notch in the win column, which honestly, now, full disclosure, in the seasonal parks, at least in the Midwest this year, was the spring kind of an aberration for them? Probably. I think is an indication of a number of factors, but the fall off from a brand standpoint when going through the merger, it was a little too early to judge things in the spring season, and the weather in the spring around this area was atrocious. And they do have a lot of parks in the Midwest, from Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and some of Pennsylvania. So I mean, the spring was terrible here from a weather standpoint, and then once it got to summer, it was terrible for a whole nother reason, because when the heater turned on and the furnace got cranked up, it just was relentless until about the last part of August, which, by the way, most of the seasonal parks were ending their weekly operations anyway. So it's here that they turned things around and we're up. That's a positive thing, I think, not just for Six Flags, but I think for the industry as a whole.
Yeah,
to see that some things, the universe corrected itself, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes. Which is great news, and I'm excited to see the way that can, hopefully give them a little bit more leeway to talk to their investors and to talk to the shareholders in a way that says, "Hey, we just increased our attendance. Will you give us a little bit more rope here to be able to spend some money and makes the investments that they need to get themselves out of debt." So I'm excited.
Quick Six Flags question for you, because you're originally based in Cincinnati, originally your home. So, did you have a Six Flags season pass for this past summer?
This summer, no.
Did you get one for next year?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you're one of the people that also has access to all 40 parks next year.
I do.
Are you going to be making a specific trip to take in as many Six Flags parks as you can next summer?
Always. But I think my travel agenda for next year probably includes the West Coast, because I haven't, I've never been to California's Great America, and I've been to Discovery Kingdom, but it was January. It didn't really, like, they were closing at 5 p.m. It wasn't like a real day. So Northern California, and then maybe if I could swing Southern California too. I think, with that's 4 parks just in California. And then, of course, here in Florida, there's not much, but I'm sure I'll be back in Cincinnati to go to Kings Island as well, and hopefully to sneak up to Cedar Point. So, a few of them at least. I love going to Carowinds, of course, one of my favorite parks. But Knott's is, like, at this point, I think I have to go to Knott's every year just to keep myself alive. It's like a, if you have to get, like, dialysis done every day, you have to go to the hospital for that. It's similar to that. I'll say a little bit less extreme. Definitely a little bit.
Sure, it is
less extreme, but it's similar in that I need to go to Knott's at least once a year.
I know a person or two that has dialysis. I'll ask them if that's true.
No, please don't. please don't. Yeah. But it's a great deal. I mean, I paid $110 for that pass, and that includes, parking. It includes, of course, the Cedar Fair chain charges way too much money for food, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. They've always done that. That's not new.
Well, that's theme parks in general.
Yeah, although, like, I will admit, I don't think Disney does. Disney food is good and less expensive than what Cedar Fair food is. It's not a lot less expensive, but a few dollars. Like, a meal at Disney, I feel like I can get out for less than $20. Never at, like, Carowinds, or don't even get me started on Knott's. All right, I gotta say this, because this is insane. I went to Knott's Berry Farm during the Boysenberry Festival this year. If you remember, we recorded with Damian Nelson while I was out there.
Okay.
I got a boysenberry pulled pork sandwich. It came with cornbread and any side. I got green beans, and I got a fountain drink, and my total was $34.
Well, how much of that is because it's California?
Most
the
of
cost
it.
of living in
Most
California.
Of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The cost of living there is more than it is here.
Yeah, that's insane. That's just, 34. It wasn't even that good. Like, not that it was bad, but, like, it wasn't like, wow, that was some of the best. Like, it was good. It was a pulled pork sandwich. It was good.
Oh, Clete, I still have this random just thought that one of these days we'll get someone from Cedar Fair Six Flags on the podcast, and you just set us back to last week.
No. Look. I told you I need to go to Knott's to live. That's what comes first. I'm blaming California for the prices. Knott's is perfect. They're infallible, legitimately. So
yeah, you just knocked us back to at least last week. I don't know.
All right, David. Yes. All right, David. How's it going? We got a great interview today.
We do.
And
not necessarily regular here, but he's been on the podcast before, interviewed with Ryan and Don, and looking forward to this interview. He's got a lot of insight and a lot of opinions on the industry.
And he's maybe not a regular on the Attractions Group podcast, but definitely a podcast pro, if you will. Welcome to the show, Mr. Matt Heller.
Well, thank you very much, Clete. Great to see you again, David. Super excited for our conversation today.
Awesome.
It's great having you back on. And honestly, to see you on a screen, more than once a year, than seeing you down at the expo.
Absolutely. I think
great to have you on.
The in-person, the ability to see people in person is so much better than the screen. But if the screen is what we got, we'll take it.
Right.
Now, full disclosure, a little story about the expo last year. I didn't have a booth. We had a booth for 2 years in a row. The last year or two, we didn't have one. And so I'm going down there and I'm trying to get a bunch of meetings with people I want to see on the floor, and some people I have a specific location we're going to meet at, and others like I will just bump into each other on the floor. So I've got a bunch of stuff in the back of my head, and very conscious. If anyone I app is listening, I'm not suitcasing. I just have conversations with people I want to have, and so the whole time, and I got a lot of stuff rattling around in my head, and so Matt and I went off this. I don't know if we talked in the aisle or we talked upstairs in the lounge, but we talked the whole time. And I kept calling him Tim the whole time. And of course, Matt didn't say anything about it until the end. We're getting ready to kind of say our salutations, go our separate ways. He goes, by the way, my name's Matt. And I was like, what have I been calling you? So I think for about a 15-minute conversation, I was calling him Tim.
I've been called worse. So I'll take Tim.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Well, Tim or Matt, let's get started. We'd love to hear a little bit of your background. What got you into the attractions industry, what you've done with it professionally and personally, and where you are now.
Absolutely. So when you ask what got me into the attractions industry, I have to say it was my mom. Because I mean, I had been to parks. I grew up just outside of Cleveland. So Geauga Lake and SeaWorld were my home parks growing up. And I would not get on a roller coaster. I was deathly afraid. My dad and my sister would ride them, and I would do the remote control bumper boats while they were riding those. But when I was between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I was living in New Hampshire, and my mom said, I know you don't like working at the supermarket very much, which I had been working throughout high school. She said, Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire is hiring. And she said, why don't you go down and check it out? So I did. I got hired as a ride operator, and that was 38 years ago. Wow. And been in the industry ever since. So I spent about 10 years at Canopy, 6 or 7 years seasonally. And then I got into a full-time leadership role. And my last role there was the assistant rides manager. Then moved on and worked with Cedar Fair when they were managing Knott's Camp Snoopy in the Mall of America before it got switched over to Nickelodeon Universe. That led to a position at Valley Fair where I was an operations area manager, and I was responsible for admissions, park services, and the former Challenge Park, which isn't there anymore, but that's where we had the Sky Coaster, go-karts, mini golf. And then from there, got the itch to do something a little different and moved to Connecticut, where I was the GM of a family entertainment center called Smiles Entertainment Center. The sign was really cool, but it kind of looked like a dentist office because it had a big smile with all these big teeth on it. But it was a cool opportunity to learn about a different part of the business. But what I learned most there was that my passion was really kind of moving from front of house operations management to people development. And so that's where I really wanted to get more into training. I had done a lot of training in my career up to that point, but I really wanted to pursue that as my career. So I started looking around the industry, found a position at Universal in Orlando. It was the senior trainer of leadership development. And so I was doing lead training. I was doing supervisor training. I was doing management training. I was doing in the venues coaching. And I did that for 8 years at Universal. And then 2011 is when I decided it was time for me to kind of step out on my own. And that's when I started Performance Optimist Consulting. That's when I started working with companies independently. And I did a lot of the same things that I did at Universal in terms of communication training and coaching and leadership and that type of thing. And that's really morphed over the years. So now I probably do more coaching than I do training. But I do a lot of Zoom group coaching. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I do a lot of work with organizations over a long period. In fact, the other day I was called a culture coach, which I had not really heard that term before, but a client called me that. So I figured, hey, it must fit if that's what they think I'm doing. And so that's what I get to do. Now I get to work with attractions of all shapes and sizes. I also work with manufacturers and suppliers. Really, it's about leadership. It's about, getting your personal best. And it's about, making sure that every day you're showing up to give your guests and your team members your absolutely best effort.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to go with the culture coach here for a second. It plays right into the first a question that we have, because talking about the current state of the industry. Now, you said that you do not just attractions industry, but well, before I go to that, by the percentages, your clients, they tend to be majority attractions based or other industry?
Well, in terms of the industry, it's like 99% attractions.
Okay.
But I also work, so I do most of my work with operations folks, if you will, in attractions, but I've also worked with marketing people. I've also worked with kind of the behind the scenes folks. I'm working right now with a gentleman who runs a lighting company, but he works and supports the attractions industry. So it's all kind of under the IAPA umbrella, if you will.
So you started doing the culture coaching probably long before he was ever named that, but so we're extending back a number, probably 10 years. I have a question about just culture within the attractions industry from a staffing standpoint. How have you seen that change over the last 5 years? And by 5 years, I mean post-pandemic compared to before.
It's really interesting because every team, every company has a culture. Whether it's the one they want or not, that's a different story, right? But everybody has a culture, and it's really determined by how things get done, how things are communicated, how people get along with one another. And so I don't know that I've seen it change a lot, but what I have seen is the emphasis on it. I think people are becoming more intentional about creating culture. Now, that's not to say that before the pandemic, people weren't concerned about culture and they wanted to have the best culture possible. But I think what they're finding is that culture is not the foosball table in the break room, right? Culture is not free food in the cafeteria. Those are nice things, but culture really is more about how people interrelate with one another. It's about making sure that your leaders are equipped to be able to give feedback and coach your team members so that they can, be the best, so that they can serve the guests, right? So it's kind of looking at how you want to show up from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, and then almost reverse engineering that to say, what are we going to do?
I think we're good. I think let's keep going. I think the crane is good. I see it back there, but I think we're fine.
Yeah.
So let's take an example of like a ride operations team. If you're talking about, so I've been a ride operator. I was a ride operator at Kings Island, and then I worked in attractions at Walt Disney World as well. And the way that I was trained to do my job was vastly different, as you might imagine, at Kings Island and then at Walt Disney World. At Kings Island, they use IROC. And so part of your training has to go through the IROC. You have to do the ride's general knowledge course and all of these things and do the lockout training, which is like in a classroom. And then you go on to your on-the-job training, which because you've done the long 8-hour course of ride's general knowledge, you get trained at the specific positions in a rather short amount of time. It's more of a ritual than anything else. Over down here in Orlando, I was trained in a more, you're going to shadow this person for like 3 days, and then at the end, you'll know everything. Is one of those like the common way? Is one of those, do you find better to teach people those safety critical points of information? Because not only is training essential to, onboard someone and acclimate them to the team, but in a ride operations perspective, I mean, it's for sure a safety critical part of the process as well.
Absolutely. I think it takes all of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the most robust and effective programs are the ones that combine all of that, all of those strategies that you mentioned, so that at the end of the process, that ride operator feels comfortable. They feel confident. In fact, I remember back when I was at Universal, and my boss, Kirsten Abbott West, would always tell us from a training perspective, we have 2 jobs. Number one, we have to build competency. So people have to be competent in what they're doing. So that ride operator has to know what buttons to push. They have to know, when to hit the e-stop, when not to hit the e-stop, how to, make sure that people are ready to ride the ride, if they're tall enough, if they're, if they don't have any loose articles, all of that stuff. But we also have to build confidence. Yeah. And so not only do I know what button to push, I can confidently push it at the right time to, release the gates or to open the restraints or whatever it is. So we have to build both of those. So all of the things that you talked about, I think, appeal to different learning styles, right? And people sometimes will learn better when someone's talking to them. Some will learn better by reading. Many people learn better by combining all that and then doing it, putting your hands actually on the control panel so you know exactly what happens when you hit that button. And it even gets down to how hard do you hit that button, because you've been a ride operator, some buttons are really easy to push and some you have to push down a little bit harder, right? So what happens when you hit that button and you dispatch the train? So if you think about it from a roller coaster perspective, and obviously it happens on flat rides too, but I just remember this from a roller coaster perspective. When you hit that button and that train goes out, like that's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big responsibility to start any ride, but you've got, 36 people potentially on a train and you've sent them out and they're going up the lift and then gravity takes over. And so you're not really sure what's going to happen except, they come back and we do it again. So I think that is a big responsibility that we have to build the confidence and competence so that they'll be able to do that on a regular basis. I think where the magic happens, honestly, is in the trainer, the person who's bringing them through that position and bringing them through those stages, because they're the ones that are going to say, you know what, you've got this part. Now we can move on to the next part, and, maybe Clete, it takes you, 2 or 3 cycles. You've got it. Right? David, maybe it takes you a few more cycles to really get it and to build that confidence and competence. But so we have to, be able to judge that. And I remember back when I was the assistant rides manager at Canopy, and, we would have certain rides that were more complex, and I would get called over to do the final certification. The trainer was there. They did the on-the-job training. They got to that person to the point where they were confident and competent, and they knew everything they were going to know after the training was done. And then I would come in when that trainer felt that trainee was ready. They would call me on the radio. I would come in. I would watch them operate a couple of cycles. I would ask them a couple of pointed questions about the operation, and then my final question was always, do you feel completely comfortable and confident to operate this attraction? And if there was any hesitation, they weren't done training. But 9 times out of 10, they said, yes, I feel good. Because I want to know if they feel good. I want to know if they feel ready as much as I want to know if that trainer feels that they're ready. So to your point, Clete, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Safety training, it can't be emphasized enough. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of gears and switches, and there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of things can go wrong. In your estimation, how, maybe not necessarily from a safety standpoint, but as far as training overall, holistically, of the associates or team members or cast members, whatever you call it, when they go out there and they actually are interacting with the guests or the rides with the guests, how would you, the overall picture, percentage-wise, would you say the attractions industry does on training?
So, you mean like how like if I were to give a scorecard to the attractions industry?
Right.
On
Scorecard. Yeah. Not necessarily on safety, because if you're not doing well in safety, that shows up on the news reports. Exactly. That shows up on the evening news. But I mean, just overall training of the employee overall.
So it's interesting you asked that question, because this is something that I talk to a lot of folks about, and it's that process of training, and it kind of gets into Clete's question as well. I think overall we do a really good job of part of the training, and here's what I mean. When I go to an attraction, I feel like the operators, if we just talk about ride operators, or even the people in the games or the merchandise areas or the food areas, they know what to do. Like, I think there's a good base of knowledge that they know what to do. So there's the knowledge part of it. There's the information. Then are they doing it? That's where the confidence comes in, right? Are they actually doing it? I think that's where sometimes we could use a little additional help with the confidence. So that's the action part. But there's another part in there that again gets back to the confidence, and that's, how do they feel about doing it? How do we feel when we're going through the training? So I use a model called know, K-N-O-W, feel, and do. Know, feel, do. And whenever I'm approaching a training, I think, what do I want that person to know? What's the information they need? How do I want them to feel when they're going through it? So again, Clete, this goes back to, that ride operator training where you've got somebody that is not quite ready to move on. Don't move them on. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're going to forget everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's important that you focus on that and then get them to do things. So what I found when I observe, and this is over 30 years, when I've observed other people doing training and I've observed even orientation trainings, that we get the know part pretty well, right? And then people are doing things pretty well, right? They could do things even better if we included that emotional piece, right? If we understood and were really intentional about how people are feeling during that training process. Are we building on confidence or are we building on confusion? That's a huge part of if someone is out in the venue and they're not doing it, probably because they're confused. I'm not sure what to do. I may have some of the knowledge. I don't have all of it. I was told this by one manager. I was told something else by another manager. Now I'm not sure what to do. So that feeling part of it, that confusion, can be really detrimental to the overall performance.
Cool. Well, beyond training a little bit, we've neglected to mention it except in a bad joke, but you are also, a co-host of a major industry podcast. And so you have the expertise of being in the industry, of being a consultant for the industry, but also of having a lot of these sorts of conversations with a lot of great folks from around the industry. So that being said, let's get critical. Where do you see any major shortcomings right now in the way things are operating in the attractions industry? Maybe it's ticket prices are going up too much. Maybe it's something about workplace culture. Maybe it's something about just general labor shortages that there's not much we can do about. What's the biggest place the attractions industry can take a step in the right direction?
Well, I'll actually challenge that last thing you said there, Clete. I think we can do something about the labor shortage. And I think it has to do with culture. And I think it has to do with what I would consider our biggest area of opportunity in the attractions industry. And that's talent management, right? So what I mean by that is not just recruiting. It's not just, initial training and onboarding. It's really managing the entire process of that employee when they first come on board. Obviously, there's a recruiting process, but when they first come on board and then all the way through their journey, maybe they move up into a leadership role, right? What are we doing to prepare them for that role? What are we doing to ensure that they're successful in that role? I remember back when I, first became a quote unquote leader, because I don't think I was really a leader back then in the industry. And it was, here's your keys, here's your radio, here's your section, go lead it. It was kind of the mantra. And I think that happens in some cases now. There's definitely people out there who, are passionate and they want to be in a leadership role, but may not have all of the tools and resources necessary to be successful in that role, because that is a very different role than being a ride operator. When you're leading a team, it's very different. It's a different skill set. And so I think we have to manage that whole talent process throughout an organization. And this is something you can do at a small family entertainment center. Disney and Universal, SeaWorld, they do a pretty good job of it, kind of because of their size and the number of resources that they have. But I think it's a big opportunity for us. And the reason I say that is, I'll challenge on the labor shortage piece is because I think some of those labor shortages were self-imposed from COVID, right? We had lower staffs and some people stuck to that. But then what also happened is when you see your revenue, dip, what do? You cut your labor, right? Because that's your biggest point of payment. So you cut your labor, and then what happens to your guest experience? It goes down. And then your revenue goes down. It's this downward spiral that ends up in a not good place. So if you're managing that talent a little bit better, you're intentionally focusing on culture, you're focusing on how people get along, quite frankly, if you are removing people from the organization that are dead weight or not cutting the mustard, or they're just toxic people, like we hold on to those people too long, and that creates negative culture as well. So that's where I think our biggest opportunity is focusing on that. And I'll add one more thing. From a guest perspective, we talk a lot about immersive guest experiences. But what I don't think we're talking enough about is immersive employee experiences. Like, we've got the latest technology for our guests. What do we have for our team members? We've got a POS system that was outdated 10 years ago. And they're still trying to, cobble those things together and work on outdated things. Or, even something as simple as you go into the employee break room and the microwave's busted, right? Or there's a chair that's wobbly, right? Are we really putting our best resources into our team members? And even if we're, balancing the team member assets and the guest assets, I think we can probably do a better job and have more conversations around that immersive employee experience.
Cool.
Yeah, when it comes to hiring a number of people, because if you're talking the seasonal parks, they have to hire thousands of people to operate on an annual basis. And typically speaking, there's a huge number of turnover that in each year. So when someone comes in and they have these employees that are going to be guest facing, it's a huge challenge. And if you come to consult or help usher along the culture of that, how do you get these guest facing students, we'll call them, because this is typically what they are. The talent agencies for a lot of these seasonal parks are the schools, whether that's a high school or it is a college. And this is not a critique. It's not to give it negative, but a lot of their communication is this. They got the phone in front of them. They got their head down in it. And to get them to look at the guest, because you're interacting with the person and on a screen. I mean, that sounds negative, and maybe in some respects it is, but it is a huge challenge to overcome. I've been to a number of different places here recently as the fall season starts ratcheting up, and there's more pumpkin patch areas to go to. I've seen a lot of younger employees that the communication skills just they're used to texting their thoughts or their communication, not necessarily speaking it verbally across to people. How is that something that can be addressed in such a short amount of time for some of these seasonal parks that need critical mass of employees in short amounts of time?
Well, I would go back to the immersive employee experience, and from the get-go, you're making them make eye contact. You're making them talk to people. You're engaging them through your orientation process. I know a lot of people have gone to online training because it's quicker, it's faster, it's cheaper. They send people a link and they can watch their orientation programming at home. Honestly, I think that's the worst idea in the world, because while you may be saving time, you may be saving money, what you are doing is you're sacrificing that person's ability to immerse them in the culture, immerse them in the way that you do things, and you're not giving them an opportunity, if they are more shy or if they are more used to interacting with the phone or through the phone, you're not giving them an opportunity to start building those skills, right? We're human beings. We naturally want to connect with other human beings, and so the way that we've been doing that a lot, for the last 10 years or so is with the phone. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it with another human being. We just have to be taught how to do it. So I think about people who are learning a new language and they go to that country and they immerse themselves in that language. You have to do it. And so I'm of the opinion that you put people in a position where they have to do something and they will do it. They will rise to the occasion. I wrote an article a number of years ago where I was working with a trampoline park, and I had 10 or so team members that I did a 4-hour session with. And they were like, well, how did you hold their attention for 4 hours? I'm like, I just talked to them. I talked to them like human beings. I engaged with them. I asked them questions. I asked them their opinion. We had a conversation. Now, can you do that with 1,000 people in an orientation program? Probably not, but you can as you get closer and closer to their on the job. They're talking to their supervisor. They're talking to their lead. You're putting them in situations again where they have to interact with people, and the more comfortable they get doing that, the more they're going to do that with the guests. So again, this goes back to how they're feeling. Are they feeling like they have to do it, and you're saying this is an expectation and we're going to hold you to that expectation? Or are they feeling like, well, they said that guest service was important, but I don't really know how to do it, and they're putting me out there and they're letting me do it without really interacting with anybody, so it must be okay. So maybe they didn't really mean that guest service was all that important. So, I go back to immersion. Immerse them in those opportunities to interact with people, and they'll come around and do it.
Fantastic. So you've literally written the book on leadership and what that means in the attractions industry. What do you think? And we've talked a lot about the development sides of things, but beyond that, what does a good leader look like in the attractions industry? And maybe how is it different than what a good leader looks like elsewhere? And how is it the same in the same vein?
So it's an interesting question, because when I think of a good leader and I look back at all the different leaders that I've had and think about the things that I've taken away from each one of them, there's something that I've been able to take away. There's some that are really analytical and can dive into the numbers. You talk about safety. I will mention a gentleman named Scott Hills from Canopy Lake Park. He taught me about safety because he was so safety conscious. Going back to the safety training just for a second, it was a mindset for him. Like everything he was looking at, and he taught other people to do that same thing, to look at things from a safety perspective. Yes, you're walking down the midway. Is there anything that you could trip on? Is there anything that might, trip up a guest and that kind of thing? So I take something away from everybody. And I think the best leaders are the ones who can be a little bit of a chameleon, to be quite honest with you, right? Because there's so many different situations that you're going to be dealing with. There's going to be a time when you have to be really empathetic to someone, and you have to understand what they're going through, and you have to let them feel the feels and go through what they're going through. At another time, there's going to be an instance where you have to lay down the law and say, this is what we're going to be doing. We have no room for someone to not be safe. So if you're violating our safety protocols, if you're a toxic employee, we're not going to tolerate that. And then there's also times when you have to be sort of the inspirer, the ones that's giving the vision, like this is where we want to go. This is our aspirational goal. So there's so many different situations. I think good leaders are ones who understand that, first of all, and then can adapt to those different situations. Some people call it situational leadership, and I think that's, a good title, because it does speak to being able to adapt to those different times and those situations and your team members. Let's not forget, however many team members you have and that are reporting to you, they're all individuals, right? Yeah. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own needs. You're going to have one person that is going to be so gung-ho, and you may have to hold them back a little bit, but then there's other people that you may have to push a little bit. Mm-hmm. So again, it's very situational, but I think the best leaders can pull from those different tactics and criteria that they've learned from other people and apply those in all those different situations.
Introduce me to the leader that can do that. And that's a lot of areas that one has to adapt to, and that's horribly challenging, which is
it is.
No, I mean, it is, because you're talking about everything from employee culture to guest experience, safety, and is this immersive? Is it not immersive enough? What do we need to change over here? And quite honestly, one of the toughest things to do is to be a change agent, because you have to pull people along and modify the culture along the way. And something you mentioned a little bit ago, I never thought of it this way. You look at organizations, they do have all the immersive experiences for the guest, but when you go behind the doors that says employees only, what's the experience for the employees? And yeah, some of the places I've been in, one of the worst rooms in the facility is the employee lounge. And let someone go with the popcorn in there to put it in the microwave and let it burn once. That thing's I've been in a handful that have done that, and it smells awful. You come back a couple of days later, it still smells like the burnt popcorn. Out in the guest facing areas, don't try it, Clete, but if you put popcorn in the microwave and it gets burnt, it sticks around for a long time.
I'm gonna try.
No, let me know how that goes for you. I've done it too. You end up having to get rid of the microwave almost. But to that point, some of the worst areas of a guest-facing organization are the employee lounges. Yeah, I never thought of that before. Because I'm looking at, when I go look at something, it's always from the guest experience standpoint. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at it from the employee standpoint, but that directly affects how they interact with the guest. So let me pivot on something real quick, because in a couple of weeks, it seems like after Labor Day, it just bang, 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 bang. Things come fast. The IAPA Expo in Orlando is coming up in several weeks. What is your involvement at IAPA, and what are you going to be doing there this year?
Well, this year I'm actually a little less involved than I have been in the past. I've been on a committee in the past, and I've helped put on some of the education programs from a planning perspective. And I decided to take a little bit of a step back this year, but I am still doing 4 programs. I'm facilitating 4 programs. One is, well, I'm excited about all of them, but as you talk about safety, I am actually doing one with Eric Beard from IRT, and we're looking at engagement and how that impacts safety. And he's got some safety records, and then he's looking at, different companies that, engage their team members a little bit more, and how that correlates to their safety record. So we're going to be doing a session on that. I'm doing a session on negotiation techniques, and I said it's called How to Get What You Want, Negotiation Techniques I Learned from My Dog, because let's face it, my dog gets anything he wants. So I figured he's doing something right. And one day I just sat down and I looked at what he was doing. I'm like, gosh, he knows what he wants, right? He's very persuasive on that, and he can tell his story in multiple ways, and he creates a win-win at the end. So how do you do that, as you are, interacting with your guests or your boss or peers or whoever it might be. Another one that I'm doing super excited about is with Scott Swenson. I don't know if you know him from the haunt industry in the attractions industry, and also a woman named Heather Doggett. And we are doing the Terrifying Leadership Experience. And one day I was thinking about how much in my culture coaching, how much I deal with leaders, and so often our conversations are about fear. Overcoming a fear, or, hey, did you talk to that person yet? No, I didn't. I don't know how it's going to go. People have fears around that. But then also, what a good job we do in the attractions industry of creating a fearful environment for all these haunts, So I called Scott, and we got Heather involved. And so that's the kind of the crux of our session, is that we're going to put people in sort of uncomfortable situations and see how they react. I'm also doing another session that's sort of similar, but a little bit more introspective, and it's called Helping Leaders Grow, and it's called Embracing the Uncomfortable. So it's kind of taking that terrifying concept and making it a little bit more personal and taking it to the next level. So those are the things that I'll be doing. And then obviously, I'll be walking the show floor. I'll be going to other education sessions. Josh and I are doing an event on Sunday night, so for Attraction Pros. So we're super excited about that. But, I think like every year, it's going to be a great week.
Yes.
In a busy week. So what advice do you have for people who may be going there for their first time?
Don't try to see it all, but see everything. I know that sounds crazy, right? Have a plan. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Is there's a lot of information on the website. Talk to people who have been there before. What are those things that you need to see? If you're someone who is actually looking to connect with vendors, find out where those vendors are on the show floor. The show floor is massive. And if you just start wandering, you're never going to get to where you need to go. You're going to stop for a piece of pizza. You're going to get a beaver tail. You're going to do all these things. And it's going to be really hard for you to get where you need to go. Are there going to be impromptu meetings? Absolutely. And, you're going to run into someone, you're going to talk to them. It happens all the time. Be prepared for that. Give yourself extra time. So if you say, hey, I'm meeting this certain vendor at 1:00, plan to get there at 12:30, because then you'll get there at 1:00 with all the other stops you're going to make and the distractions and things of that nature. I would also say, take advantage of the education sessions, because I don't know, there's over 100, I think, education sessions that are planned, and they're all put on by people who are, first of all, volunteering their time, but second of all, are doing it because they're passionate about that topic. And it could be something that, may not 100% relate to what you're doing or your role, but you can always get one little nugget. Like if you're listening and you're paying attention, like there's always something that you can apply to what you do in some way. So take advantage of the education, find those sessions that you want to go to, plan out your time on the floor. And then don't forget about the evening. If you get invited to somewhere in the evening for a party or something, go. Like this is all about meeting people, all about networking. It's easy to say, hard to do. Don't be shy, but also don't worry about your elevator pitch. In fact, don't even have an elevator pitch. I'm of the opinion and experience that if you're just authentic with people, if you just walk in and say, even if you call them the wrong name, right, Daniel? If you call them the wrong name,
that's perfect.
Even if you do that, like just be authentic and just say, hi, I'm Matt. It's the first time I've been here. Or, the first time coming to IAPA. Nice to meet you, and just let the conversation go from there. I mean, you said it earlier, like this industry is full of so many people that just love the industry and want to do well and want to see other people do well.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if you walked up to somebody, a veteran. I mean, if you're a first time attendee and you walk up to somebody that has a lot of ribbons on their name tag, and you say, hi, I'm Matt. It's my first time here. I guarantee they're going to say, come with me. I'm going to introduce you to someone. I'm going to take you to a booth and show you something, because that's how much we love the industry and we love to share what we do.
I'm going to, in dovetail off of that. Well, first of all, Ryan Sir, who was a co-host on the podcast before, he and I had started a partnership back in, I think it's 2015. So we decided we're going to IAPA and we're going to try to crank up business. Now, I think that was in 15 or 16. I forget which year it was. We had a plan. And when we went down those, it was pretty, we were going to do this. We were meeting this person. When we went down that escalator and saw just the enormity of the room, we just kind of both looked at each other like, okay, it was just so overwhelming going down there and thinking, okay, we have a plan, but where do we even start now? So, honestly, but one of the, I would dovetail off what you said. Secondly, is commit to doing it more than once. If it's your first time going there and you think you're going to make a splash, maybe you might catch lightning in a bottle, but it's going to happen like on year 2, 3, 4, and it just something with consistency. And it is an industry, I've heard more than one person say it, it's like a big family. It really is. And everyone does go out of their way to help people out. It's amazing. My daughter likes being in the industry. She was looking at doing a number of different things. She works at Great Wolf Lodge right now, and she wanted to go down and do things with working around Disney. And I just randomly reached out to, I can't pronounce his last name, oddly enough. I can pronounce his first name, Jakob Wall, the CEO of IAPA, just to see. It's a busy week. But hey, he can always say no. So I just asked, hey, my daughter's wanting to do this, and this in the industry. Do you have a few minutes during the show? That's how stupid I was. During the show, would you have a few minutes? He got us in one of the boardrooms on the second level, and we went up there overlooking the trade show floor. It's a great view, by the way. And he spent 15 minutes with her, and he's taken in the whole time, like, let me introduce you to this person, this person, this person. And so we went down the floor, and Francine Gonzalez, I forget who she was working with at the time, went on to be at Legoland in Florida. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's talking to Francine for 45 minutes. And then she's talking to this person for 30 minutes. And it's just amazing. And people are so willing to give of their time. It's it's an amazing industry to be part of. And to your point, yeah, people go out of their way to be generous, to take you under their wing, say, follow me and let me show you.
And I think part of that is
good.
I think part of that is because, like, we know, like, if you work in the attractions industry, especially if you've worked in park, we've all been yelled at by a guest before. It's happened. That's like a really uniting experience, I think. But beyond that, I think too, the attractions industry is like the entertainment in general, maybe the example of a high tide lifts all ships. Like, that is so, so true in where we are and what we do. And so I think, if we can create a theme park, like a culture of the world writ large, perhaps, such that people love theme parks more, that is so good for all of us. It's unbelievably. Let's do that.
Well, and think about what we're actually talking about here. And you said it, Clete, it's the culture, right? When you think about the culture of people that you run into at IAAPA, and I think, David and I both said it, if you run into someone that says, oh, you're a first timer, and you had a great example with your daughter, like, they're going to help you out. Now, how did that happen within the attractions industry? It's probably because somebody else helped them out.
Yeah.
And it's this consistent warm feeling that you get when you interact with these people. It does feel like a family. It's like, old home days. It's a big family reunion. Can we create that same feeling in an organization, in a team? And the answer is, of course, yes. But we have to be somewhat intentional about it, right? We have to have the people that are setting the example. We have to have the people that are taking that brand new team member, by the hand and saying, this is what we do here at X amusement park, right? This is how we do things. And we're going to take care of you, and we're going to support you, and we've got your back. And all those things have to happen to create that kind of culture that has already been created within the attractions industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I feel like this conversation can go on for a really long time, because I feel like because we had a framework of what the interview would probably go like, and I think we hit maybe 2 out of the 10 questions.
Yeah.
But it's really engaging, because there's a lot of things that go around with the culture, not necessarily from the guest experience, from the employee experience, which a lot of things were brought out that I really hadn't considered. But so the things are coming up. IAAPA is coming up. Matt, how can people reach you? How can people engage with you? And what's your website? And what's the website for the podcast?
So the website for my business is performanceoptimist.com, and you can get anything about me there. You can connect, you can book time on my calendar. You can see what programs I've got coming up. For the podcast, it's AttractionPros.com. And there you can get past episodes. You can subscribe on all the platforms, Google and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your fun podcasts. And then, you can reach me through LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've got a private Facebook group for attractions leaders. It's called All Clear. So if you just search in Facebook for that, you can find that. And then I'll be at IAAPA. So please, if you see me there, hunt me down, find me, say hello. I would love to connect.
Awesome.
Well, Tim, I look forward to connecting with you on the floor.
Same with you, Douglas.
Douglas. Oh, that's so good. Douglas. All right. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I got the ding going. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Every time someone scores against somebody, I got the ding going.
There you go.
Perfect. On cue. Well, Matt, thanks so much again. We'd love to have you back on in the future. It was a true delight.
I would love to come back anytime. Thank you.
See you in November.
All right. That was a great time. Podcast Bros with the Podcast Pros.
Well, one of them, singular, just one pro. Josh wasn't on here.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey.
We had a little bit of everything in this episode. We had response to people want us to get political and comment on world affairs.
Yes.
We had a large crane go behind us, and just random people keep going back and forth. There's one guy that kept going back like 5 or 6 times. And the same guy kept showing up in my background, and then Tommy's going past. So, hey.
So how much are you paying those people to walk back and forth as background actors?
Not very much, but I think maybe I could get like an audience back there. That would be cool. They have the applause sign. Yeah. Every time I make a smart comment, we get the applause in the background.
What we need is a laughing track, because I made a great joke about the racer earlier, and there was just crickets. So if we could be like, ha, that'd make me feel better.
We just need more sound effects.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for watching the Attractions Group podcast. Very serious show about very serious topics. We'll see you back here soon, hopefully, and make sure to check out our Behind the Scare series as well. We have a really exciting one coming up with Old Tucson Entertainment that'll be out soon. So keep subscribed, keep looking out, and keep moving forward.
Yes, go Reds.
Go Reds.